Welcome to the creative brain of Dean Hawk. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and equipped to become a better ministry leader.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Dean Hawk Leadership Podcast. So glad to have you join us this month. I want to encourage you to share this podcast with your friends. Also want to remind you that all of our resources, my sermons, outlines, PowerPoints, fill-in-the-blank handouts are all free of charge at deanhawk.com, and that's just a blessing for you guys. Hey, this month's topic is called Phases, Stages, and Changes in Church. And actually what we're going to do is, in just a moment, we're going to jump to a session that I just got done teaching to all of my volunteer leadership base on a Sunday night. And in 2018, we are doing a lot of restructuring, refocusing, reanalyzing. If we feel like a certain area isn't producing, we're pulling that area back and we're focusing our efforts as a church. But in the midst of this, we've had multiple staff transitions of staff members launching out into new ministries and launching a church and several key staff members. And when several key staff members start to transition, it makes the people kind of creates a doubt and a wonder of what's going on. And so I shared this message that just talked about how God uses people in different stages of the ministry and different phases of the church and how they're there for a season. I think it'll bless you and will help you as you process through this, maybe in your own time, whether you're in it right now or in the future. It's just some great tools and great information to lead your church through change. All right, I want to take just a few minutes here and just share with you a lot of cool things have been happening around Rock Family Church. And so I want to talk about tonight change. And what does that change look like? And two things happened. At the beginning of the year, the Lord spoke very clear to me about alignment and some direction for the church and which way we were going. And if you've ever read Good to Great, Jim Collins talks about getting the right people on the bus and getting the right people in the right seats on the bus. And God's just organizing and structuring and leading and aligning us. And when change begins to happen, especially when we look at the change that we're experiencing as a church among our staff, people go to two extremes. Either A, they say the ship is sinking and the rats are fleeing the sinking ship. No offense to Pastor Mike and Kate. But something's wrong with the ship is sinking. Or we go to the other extreme, which I like better, is God is doing something supernatural and he's aligning his soldiers in the place where he needs them in the front lines of battle. And so one of the things, well, let me just talk to you about some changes. If you haven't been around, and it's been a very interesting season being the leader and a pastor. But really some of the changes started last summer because we had a change in our children's ministry. And we hired an entire new children's staff, and we have an amazing team of no offense to the men, but it's an amazing team of women, of Lindsay, and yes, give them a hand. Lindsay and Jesse and Sophia and Lauren and this amazing team of women that are leading our children's ministry. Then in January, we added, I saw Pastor Doug. Wave your hand, Pastor Doug. In case you don't know, that's our South Campus pastor. We brought Pastor Doug on as our new South Campus pastor. And then in January, Pastor Kate and I began to talk about her transition. And she stepped out in transition without even not knowing what was to come. She was just following her heart. Then in February, Pastor Liz launched out to begin the motion to put Freedom House into action. And she's been working on the curriculum and doing all the groundwork to launch that. And then in February, when Liz stepped down to launch that, we added Lisa Darden. Is Lisa here? Do I see Lisa? I don't see it. She's here. Where is she? Come on, wave your hand, Lisa. And we added Lisa to our Thrive small group ministry. And then Pastor Mike stepped in and took over the Thrive leadership at the first of the year as that transition was happening. And then last month we announced that Pastor Mike and Liz are going to move to Nashville to launch a church there, Freedom Place Church. And then we're so excited to have Pastor Brad Fontaine coming to us from Houston. He'll be here in a few weeks. If you missed that announcement, he's on his way. And then we just announced this morning that Aaron Pendleton is coming on board. And so you could look and go, oh my gosh. Okay? And someone did ask me this 2 Sundays ago. They were walking in and they actually asked Kim, and I think it was after we sent out the email about Pastor Mike, and they looked at Kim, and I heard him across the lobby, you and Dean aren't going anywhere, are you? And let me just tell you, you're stuck with me. I am not going anywhere. Kim is not going anywhere. We're here for the long ride. But if you look at your notes this afternoon, I want us I see church as a lot like the launch of an old Apollo rocket. Remember the Apollo rocket and the phases and stages of doing church. And so on your notes, the first stage is the scaffolding. And those individuals are called alongside to assist with the launch. And we often forget this role is only a temporary one. And so here's the rocket that we've got launching, and each stage is helping it get through different aspects. But before it ever takes off, remember the scaffolding is there and it's holding the rocket steady in the winds. And then when the engines take, the scaffolding falls away. Well, we had some amazing, amazing people that helped us launch Rock Family Church 14 years ago. It was 14 years ago this month. We were in a Bible study getting ready to launch in June the church. And so God sent some people, one from Nebraska, another one from Tulsa. God sent some people here locally to be involved with that. And the scaffolding is, those individuals don't always stay, but some do. Like Kevin and Janie, who have been founding members, and Tyler and Ron and Mary, and people like Chet and Luann that got here as fast as they could and have been with us for many, many, many years of the church. And so we grow from there. And then the second is what I call the launch sequence. And this is the scariest phase. This is when the rocket is going to break the Earth's atmosphere to get into orbit to fulfill its mission. If it doesn't break the atmosphere, it's not going to fulfill the mission. And the reality is the greatest amount of energy is needed in stage 1 to break the gravitational pull. And here's what happens. I think the figure is about 86%, but we'll call it 90% of church plants fail within the first 5 years. Now that's scary statistics that basically 1 out of 10 survive. Well, there are some things that we can do, and we did, and other churches do, to make sure of their survival rate. And here's what happens in this launch stage. You see it on your notes. This is a battle between the vision and passion to reach a city versus the circumstances and problems in that phase. And so you have to overcome the problems of no facility, and no finances, and little funds, and very few volunteers, to where now, this afternoon, here sits just a small representation of the hundreds of volunteers that serve this church so faithfully every week. Thirdly, we know that God has a specific purpose and destination for each stage. The first stage gets us out of the gravitational pull. The second stage launches us into orbit. And each phase and stage of a church has a different mission and a different plan to fulfill. And we'll never tackle the advancement until we learn the processes, until we learn the systems to equip us to take us to the next level. A spiritual mentor of mine said this. He said, most ministers never get past phase 1 in their ministry. I heard that when I was in my 20s. It scared the fire out of me. God, I want to fulfill everything you have. And I thought I was going to be in youth ministry for my entire ministry career. But I did that for 23 years, and now for the last 14, God has had me shift to a lead pastor role, which is probably, to my assumption, where I will complete the mission and Or actually my third completion is once I'm done here, I'm going to be a chaplain on a cruise ship. My kids said I would have free medical and free food, and so that's my next phase. Number 4 is every stage is crucial and equally important. The rocket cannot get where it needs to go unless without each phase and stage. So to say that stage 2 is more valuable than stage 3, it's not. And so when I look at the valuable people that God has sent to our church, and now God is sending on to their next destination, I look and I say, a Pastor Mike fulfilled a stage for 7.5 years. A Pastor Kate was here for 5+ years, and she was a part, he was a part, Liz was a part. All these individuals that have faithfully served here have advanced the cause of Christ and advanced the mission of where we are. And then, number 5, God will call individuals to assist with a particular stage. And so here's what happens, and here's, I'm going to tell you, and I've already talked with Kate and Mike and Liz. Because of what they did, it's going to cause the next people to advance even further. And it's not that, they weren't good enough, or if they had been better, they could have taken us further. No, they were part of their mission was to help us reach and to attain where we needed to go. And then we shifted gears and we went to the next person and we catapulted them on. If I've done my job right when I was a youth pastor and I passed it on to the next person, let me give you an example. In Plano, Texas, I was the youth pastor there for 10 years. When I passed it on to Dennis, Dennis was there for 25 years as their youth pastor. He outshined me. I thought 10 was like 10. He went 25 years. Well, I'm not upset. I'm excited because I planted, and as Paul said, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. So I want to talk about change and how do we handle change. Because see, many people can be, change can just be difficult. So if you're taking notes, let's do the first one. Change can be awkward. Change can be awkward. We have new people and we have new personalities. And I'm going to tell you, change is going to continue to happen among our church, among our serving teams, among our leadership, among our elders, among our staff. I am praying now for staff members we're going to need 2 years from now. I am praying every day for God to send winners to our team. Winners that can finance the vision. Winners that can lead teams. Winners that say, I'll take care of that. Do you know what's amazing to me? That I'm so honored to serve. And when I hear the staff talk about how you guys that serve this church so faithfully, how some of the most menial tasks, you say, no, let me do that. I want to do that. And that is so valuable to us as a church when we have people step up and say, I'll own this, I'll tackle it, I want to be a part of it. Change can be awkward. We see the children of Israel have been in 400 years of slavery, and Moses leads them out. And it's awkward because we're not sleeping in the bed we used to. We're not getting beatings like we used to. And some of the people actually said, this is hard to believe, would we not be better to go back into bondage, to go back into slavery than this new life that we've had? So change can be awkward. Secondly, change can be confusing. People can say, well, what's going on? What's happening? I don't know. And what's happening? Because here's a confusing change. Watch this one. Pastor Liz and Lisa basically gave birth and gave wings to Thrive Discipleship. And then Pastor Liz steps down to do Freedom House, and Pastor Mike takes it, and Lisa comes on board on part-time staff, and then Pastor Mike's here, and then after a couple of months, Pastor Mike is passing it off to Pastor Aaron. And it can be a little, who's my leader? It can be a little confusing, but it's causing the advancement of the kingdom of God. Confusion came when Jesus is talking with his disciples, and he says to his disciples, he said, he said, I must die, and in 3 days I'll rebuild this temple. Peter pulls him aside and says, Lord, stop talking like this. He was confused. Jesus said, get behind me, Satan. You're trying to stop God's plan. And even though we get confused at times, we don't need to question. We can be confused, but we have to know that confusion and questioning can cause us to pull back from the vision when Jesus is saying, don't let your confusion stop the vision that I'm desiring to take place here. Thirdly, change can be uncomfortable. Change can be uncomfortable. How many of you remember the change from elementary school to junior high or middle school? That is one of the most awkward, uncomfortable changes because you're used to, think back, I'm just going to refresh your memory. Think back, in elementary school, you had your little friends, you had your little lunch. And now in junior high, you walk into the gym and the coach says, strip down and take a shower. With them? I don't know about your school. We had guys that showered with their underwear on. Did any of you have that? Don't admit it if you did. But I'm just saying, that change is so awkward and it's so uncomfortable. And there's new systems and there's a new way of doing things and there's new direction and it can be uncomfortable. Change can be painful, number 4. Change can be painful. How many of you are guilty of saying, well, we've always done it this way before? This is the way we're used to doing it. And change can be painful. And we tend to be creatures of habit. And so when we have to get out of our habit, it can kind of be painful. Dr. Henry Cloud says this, we change our behavior when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. And that's so true. That we when do we change our eating habits? When we get a doctor's report that says if you don't, this will happen. When do we change maybe our behavior at work? When our boss says if you don't correct this, you won't have a job. Suddenly, we can endure the pain of change and we can make a difference. Number 5, our response to change will hinder or advance the vision. Our vision as a church. Our response to change will hinder or advance the vision. What does that mean? If we're negative to change and we're pulling back on the reins of the horse, so to speak, the horse isn't going to run at full stride. Did anybody watch the Kentucky Derby this year? In the mud, did you see it yesterday? The rain and the mud, and woe for the guy who's about 8 horses back, who was just a mud-slinging party. I want to be the guy in front. He had on white pants and a white shirt, and he didn't have a speck of mud on him. Because if you run in the front, you're not going to get all the flack and the muck in the back. And so if we embrace change and run and say we're going to embrace this and we're going to advance the vision because of this change that is taking place. And here's what we know. We respond to change with fear or faith. Either fear, I don't know what it's going to be like. I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure what's happening. Or we respond with faith and say, isn't it cool what God's doing? God is aligning people and God is advancing kingdom purposes and look what God is happening. Now sometimes I know people and pastors and employers and different things can mask change to hide their own problems or to hide their own challenges. But we're advancing because we want to see God reach more in our community. We want to throw out a bigger net so we can catch more fish. So fear will hinder you from moving forward. And so on your notes, resistance to change hinders the progress. Resistance to change hinders the progress. And here's what puzzles me. Think about this. I read the statistic this past week. 8% of churches in America are 1,000 or greater. 92% of churches in America are under 1,000, and I think it's like 75% are under 150. The average church size in America is right around 90 people is the average church size in America. Well, let me ask you this. Why do some churches grow and some don't? Here's what I would tell you. Because some churches embrace change and others don't. Why do we have one of the biggest crises we have in the American church today is churches are literally aging and dying out. They're dying out because they have a building, they have a property, it's all paid for, and the average age of their membership is 76. What happened? They didn't change with the culture. They didn't change with the music. And here's what we have to know and appreciate in our church. Not every change are we going to like. Not every change is going to fit your cup of tea. Some of you want the music louder. Some of you want the music softer. Some of you want more contemporary. Some of you want more traditional. Some of you want me to teach expository and go through verse by verse, and a lot of you like topical because that's what we tend to do more here of, so I'm assuming you like that because you tend to go here. We try and teach through 1 or 2 books a year. We did Romans last year, and in 2 weeks we start 1 and 2 Timothy, and we're going to go through the books of the Bible. But we all have our different flavors and tastes. And then some people get frustrated because the church is changing culturally. In other words, how many of you remember the day that you did not go to church in your Levi's? You put on your dress pants. You put on a nice shirt and you ironed it. Now we don't worry about ironing it. And it used to be, we used to say, hey, no jeans with holes. Now we say jeans with limited holes. Here's something that helped me understand the cultural change in church. If I was to go to, let's pick one of our, to Nicaragua, one of the nations that we're helping with Compassion International. If I was to go there and start a church, I'm not going to do it like American church. I'm going to wear what they wear. I'm going to eat what they eat. I'm going to do music that fits their culture. I'm not going to do Hillsong. I'm not going to do Bethel. I'm going to do what fits their culture. Why is it indifferent to be a church that adapts to our culture? We don't change the message. We don't adapt the word to fit the culture, but we adapt our presentation so the culture will accept the word that we present. Does that make sense? All right, let's wrap this up. Some hindrances to change on your notes. Number 1 is pride. I don't need to change. Fear. I'm afraid to take the risk. Rebellion. I don't want to change. Laziness. I don't feel like changing. Ignorance. I've never thought about changing. Those can stop us and hinder us. Number 6, change can be good. A better word would be excellent. Change can be good. 2 blind men came to Jesus and said, Master, if it be your will, would you heal us? Jesus made some mud, spit in their eyes, and they were healed. That's a good change. I was blind, but now I see. So change can lead us to better places to advance the kingdom purpose. And number 7, change keeps things fresh. I hope you changed your underwear today. Change keeps things fresh. Where does water become stagnant? When there's not fresh water coming into it. When it just sits and is still. John Maxwell said, we cannot become what we need to be by remaining what we are. We can't be the church that God's called us to be if we just remain the way we are. We need to change. And we need to be that church. That means at South Campus, we're going to continue to push and to strive and to reach and to stretch. At Woodman, we're going to continue to reach one more family, to invite one more neighbor. We're going to continue to get involved with the things of God in our community. So how do we handle change? Here's 3 quick things and we'll wrap it up. Number 1, we keep our eyes on Jesus, not on man. not on a person. We keep our eyes on Jesus. Number 2, we remain flexible. We're flexible. We got to be like a rubber band. We've got to be able to flex and go with the needs and the issues and the circumstances around us. Number 3, we look for the good in the situation. We look for the good in the situation. And number 4, we focus on the mission of advancing the cause of Christ. So you know what's exciting? Do you know what's exciting? Is Austin, Texas is going to get to experience worship led by Kate Magida. And I believe her husband's there too. I think so. Give me a thumbs up if you agree, Kate. She agrees. See? And I think Nashville's going to be a better city because Pastor Mike and Liz are there. And I think teenagers are going to be helped because of the Freedom House and helping teenagers that are in crisis. And I believe that Freedom Place Church is going to reach people in Nashville. I know there's lots of churches there, but there's people that won't go to those churches, and Pastor Mike and Liz are there for a purpose and to advance a kingdom mission. I want to read to you what I read to you last quarter when we gathered together. It's what I heard in my heart early in the year. It says, I hear the sound of a raging river, not one of destruction, but an overpowering, surging river of life and love. When you're hiking in the woods, you know you're close to the river from the sound. You can't see it yet, but you can hear and sense its power. We are close. God is orchestrating something within our midst, within our team, within our church. I see a flood coming. We have not seen or tasted the level of influence God desires our church to make in this city. A flood is coming. Our unity is crucial. Our commitment to excellence must reign or we will falter. When the water level rises, we must be prepared for the increased flow of people, is what we're talking about. We will ride this wave like a professional surfer, or pardon Craig, or flounder like Cub Scouts in a canoe. Wondering how we miss such an obvious wave and move of God. I want to be on the crest of what God is doing in our community. And I am thankful and grateful for every one of you and the investment that you make in this church and the investment that you make in this city. My wife shared something very profound, and I want to challenge you, and I realize most of you probably here are core people and you're core givers. But she shared this morning, that if 100 families at Rock Family Church, and I would tell you probably 40 to 50% don't give anything. If 100 families would just give $25 a week, $100 a month, that would equal $10,000 a month. It would add to our annual budget $120,000. What could we do? How many could we reach? How many families could we assist with an extra $120,000? I challenged the pastors. I'll wrap it up in teams. You can get ready. I challenged the pastors 3 weeks ago, and I said, what would happen if the 400 churches of Colorado Springs each adopted one homeless single mother, one homeless family, one homeless person, help get them into an apartment? And we pay their apartment rent for the first 6 months. And the next 3 months, they pay 50%. And the last 3 months, they're on 100%. We help get them a job. We help them put them through financial peace. We help disciple them. And they have to come to our church. I'm sorry, we're helping you. You're coming to our church. And your kids are going to come to our children's ministry. And your teenagers are going to come to Switch and get their lives changed. And let's change it. And I threw that out and I said, wouldn't it be cool if 400 families a year we changed and we could defeat homelessness? And I got done and I was all jazzed and pumped. Yeah, we can get 400. And the Lord said, when is Rock going to start with your first? Reach the city one family at a time.
Thank you for joining us today. For a free sermon series and teaching outlines by Pastor Dean, visit us at deanhawk.com. Be sure and join us next month as we continue our growth on leadership.